House will come to order. Today's Pledge of Allegiance is by Kristen Pugh, Sheree Alston, Nicole Rodriguez, Nicholas Rodriguez, and they are from the NAACP Aurora Youth Council, and they are guests of Representative Jackson.
Please join us in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Randall, please call the roll.
And then go down.
Representatives Arndt, Baker J, Baker K, K. Becker, I'm so excited to call your name now.
I just want you to come here. You have to see me when you call my name.
Let's see.
Excused.
Beckman, Beckman,
Excused.
Benavides, Bridges, Buck, Buckner, Buckner, Representative Beckman is present.
Excused.
Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Covarrubias, Covarrubias, Danielson, Escar, Escar, Everett, Exum, Foot, Garnett, Janal, Gray, Hamner, Hanson, Hanson, Herod, Representative Herod,
Excused.
Putin, Humphrey, Jackson, Kennedy,
Right, we have a lot of.
Kennedy,
Well, I don't know if we're making the. I don't know if we have to make them. Let me see.
Excused.
Kraft Tharp, Representative Herod is present. Kraft Tharp, Landgraf, Lawrence. Oh, thank you. Lebsock,
The Greek.
Lebsock.
Okay, all right.
Oh, thank you. Lee, Leonard,
Okay,
Lewis.
now it's changing.
Liston, Lontine.
I'm making the copies because it's changing again.
Representative Becker K is present. Lontine,
It's
Lundeen, McKean,
yeah, okay, read it, but it's.
McLaughlin, Melton.
My
Representative Buckner is present.
split, I don't know.
Melton, Michelson Janae, Midge Bush, Navarro, Neville, Nordberg,
Oh, yeah, it is, okay.
Pabon, Pedersen, Rankin,
Bye-bye. So 1279, I am.
Rankin, Oh, thank you. Ransom. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar.
Print it, I'm gonna print it out.
Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Van Winkle.
See, I don't know how.
Weissman. Willett. Williams.
Oh, it's a big one.
Wilson.
It's like 3 or 4.
Winter.
Oh, yeah, she's got one.
Winter.
Okay.
Wist. Representative Wist. Young. Young. Oh, thank you. Madam Speaker.
I am here. With 60 present, with 61 present and another person. That's okay, Mr. Renner, you keep on changing on me. People keep showing up. With 63 present. Oh, you change it on me again. With 64 present and 1 excuse, we have a quorum. All right, Representative McLaughlin, Representative Gray.
No, he's in the back.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I introduce to you Representative Gray, who is out of line alphabetically, but somehow he was skipped in the whole scheme of things. So today we have Representative Gray helping us out. There once was a young man named Gray who slaved at the Capitol by day.
Then he came to the well to tell the clerk things are swell. We all knew he'd then gone astray.
Special orders if it's.
Madam Speaker, I move that the reading of the Journal of Wednesday, April 19, 2017 be dispensed with and approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay.
Those opposed signify by saying no.
We win. I know.
The motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Sorry.
You wearing pink?
Any announcements or introductions? Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. I just want to remind you that tomorrow's the day you get to wear your college gear. We'll be recognizing College Friday, so I hope that you went through your closets and found your favorite T-shirt, sweatshirt, and it is correct, Madam Speaker, okay for everyone to wear their college T-shirt and sweatshirt tomorrow.
That is fine with me. It is up to the majority leader on dress code, but I think it's okay with her too. Further announcements or introductions, Representative Michelson Janae. Hold on one second. Members, it's very loud out there, and we have announcements and introductions. Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, members. Reminder that we have the Colorado Cancer Caucus lunch today with a focus on ovarian cancer. Come learn about what we are doing to address ovarian cancer and give our favorite gender, our wonderful women, a long, healthy life. Come join us.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Arndt and Representative Wilson.
Speaker just called on you.
Do it.
You good? I've done it.
Representative Wilson.
Get in there.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, if you would please, we have a tribute this morning. Today is Sportsman's Day at the Capitol.
I like it.
And we have a tribute. So if we could have your attention, please.
The House of Representatives, convened in the 71st General Assembly, hereby extends sincere commendations to the American System of Conservation Funding on behalf of their 80th anniversary. After realizing that America's natural resources were in peril, sportsmen and women decided to support laws that stopped excessive harvest of fish and wildlife. They helped to establish game and fish agencies to protect fish, wildlife, and their habitat, and supported fishing and hunting license fees to help fund the efforts to provide for healthy natural resources for future generations. The sports community initiated the American System of Conservation Funding with the passage of the Pittman-Robertson Act, which directed excess taxes on firearms and ammunition to a dedicated fund to be used specifically for conservation purposes. Further, revenue from sports licenses was permanently linked to conservation through the establishment of this program. In 2015 alone, the sale of hunting and fishing licenses generated a combined $68.28 million in revenue, in addition to $28.51 million distributed to the state from excess taxes collected from the sale of firearms, ammunition, archery equipment, motorboat fuel, and fishing equipment. This revenue supports Colorado Parks and Wildlife to aid in its changing of managing our fish and wildlife for the enjoyment of all Coloradans. The members of the Colorado House of Representatives are proud to commemorate the American System of Conservation in its 80th year, and we honor the many contributions of Colorado sportsmen and women to conservation across the Centennial State. On request of Representative Jim Wilson, given this 20th day of April 2017, State Capitol in Denver.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Art and myself are co-chairs of the Sportsman's Caucus here at the Capitol, and we are honored today to recognize the folks that bring you Hot Dog Day here at the Capitol. Over here on our right, representing the various groups that were recognized in the tribute this morning: Colorado Outfitters United, Chris Journey; Mule Deer Foundation, Marty Holmes; Big Game Forever, Denny Behrens; Colorado Wildlife Federation, Kent Ingram; Miss Rodeo Colorado, Kelsey Winslow; Colorado Trappers and Predator Hunters Association, Dan Gates; National Wild Turkey Federation, Crystal Adams; SCI Colorado Chapter, Brett Axton; Colorado Outfitters Association, Marie Haskett and Mia Anstein; and the Colorado Wildlife Federation, Alan Reich. So these are the folks that bring you Sportsman's Day at the Capitol, so please welcome these folks to the floor. And on that note, today is Sportsman's Day at the Capitol. On first floor, they have their booths set up, which are pretty interesting stuff, particularly if you haven't seen some of the furs and so forth that show up there. On your desk is a card. If you're wondering where Representative Art got her cap, if you go down and have the stickers applied to that card, then stop by my office. You have your choice of several caps. These are 2 of them. So those are there, and you can also have your aide help you out on getting those stickers as well. And we'll start serving hot dogs, elk cheddar dogs, and elk burgers on the Capitol lawn east of the Capitol today. So welcome to Sportsman's Day at the Capitol.
Thanks, Joe.
Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Everett and Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 18 years ago, we had a huge tragedy in my district.
Hold on one moment, Representative Everett. Members, can we please have your attention? Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, 18 years ago in my community, which includes Columbine High School, there's a major tragedy. 2 gentlemen came in and there was a lot of death and massacre. And I cannot tell you how devastating it was for my community, but I wasn't there. Minority Leader Neville was.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, let's just reflect on this day. This was 18 years ago. I remember that day very specifically, but what I do remember is the days after, the way the community came together and the way we supported the families. And I'm just never going to forget having to walk into those families' homes that we've known for years and see the terrible hurt and tragedy on their faces. And not a day goes by where I don't think about what life would be like if we still had those wonderful individuals who were slaughtered in the world today. But what gives me comfort is I think they're smiling down on us from heaven right now. They're with our Lord, and I think we need to remember that. But don't forget this day. Don't forget what came out of this day and what we can do as a community to help our fellow man. Thank you.
Representative Everett.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence.
Moment of silence granted.
Thank you, members.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Everett, Representative Neville. And every year on this day, I've tried to come up and say, let's never forget what happened with Columbine, but please, let's always remember our first responders and the folks at Jefferson Center for Mental Health, who every year remind us that they also are still living with this tragedy, and they were there. They were first in the door. They've continued to help us with our healing. So Jefferson Center for Mental Health and Harriet Hall, thank you for all the work that you've done.
Any further announcements or introductions? Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to welcome our Doctor of the Day. He's from Fort Collins, Dr. Corey Carroll. And Dr. Carroll, if you're here or wherever you are downstairs or roaming the halls around here, welcome to the Capitol again. Doctor of the Day. Thank you.
Further announcements or introductions? I do have one announcement. Senator Crowder will be removed as a co-prime sponsor from House Bill 1237. Any further announcements or introductions? Next order of business is third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 184.
Senate Bill 184 by Senator Gardner, House Representative Pabon, concerning measures to define lawful consumption of marijuana.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 184 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of Senate Bill 184 on third reading and final passage. Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to request permission for a third reading amendment to Senate Bill 184.
You have heard the motion to request permission on a third reading amendment. Would you like to tell us why, Representative Pabon?
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you. Members, in the course of time since we've discussed this bill on second reading, and Representative Garnett did bring this to the body's attention. We thank Representative Garnett for doing that. There are those who would seek to take advantage of the laws of Colorado to essentially use a place of worship to consume marijuana. And what we have, the request for permission is simply this, that we would place a prohibition on places of worship being used for marijuana consumption, but recognizing the First Amendment, religious freedom, religious expression, all those different pieces. We also have within the amendment a severability clause that says that if there are those issues that are raised, that particular provision of the amendment of this language will be taken out. And I think it's worth, yeah, they don't have the right version. It's L021. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Majority Leader. So just so you can see up on the screen, here's what the amendment does. Now, let me be clear about what the state of the law is so you understand what the state of the law is. You cannot decide based on simply a sudden belief that cannabis consumption in a religious setting is suddenly okay under the First Amendment. If that was the case, we would have the Church of explicit substance X, explicit substance Y, and everyone would be able to do so under the auspices of engaging in religious worship. First Amendment simply does not allow that. But in this case, we have a particular group of individuals who are seeking to take advantage of our consumption laws because a church would be considered private under Senate Bill 184 and using that as a shroud to essentially allow consumption in a place where it should not be allowed. So the request is that a place of religious worship shall not be authorized as a place of marijuana consumption.
Representative Pabon. Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do have more hair than Representative Pabon. Oh, how you- You know, members, I have to thoroughly and utterly disagree with this amendment. And I get that we're the second chamber, and so a substantive amendment can be added in, and this is substantive. And I disagree with it because, and I don't say this very much here at the well, but this is the archetypal nanny state right here. That's what this is. This is the nanny state. And we've also seen this in history too. When the American Indian community wanted to practice peyote ceremonies, which they had been practicing long before there ever was a United States or any type of European discovery, the federal government tried to put a stop to it, saying that that wasn't a proper way to worship. And this is what this particular amendment is doing, is saying to people, we don't like the way that you worship. And so we're going to craft an amendment and develop a law that says that because we don't like the way that you worship, we're going to put it in the law that you can't worship that way. Now, do I agree with the way that they're worshiping? I don't think that's really relevant if I agree with it or not. The fact is that that's how they feel about it, that this is the way that they want to worship. And if that's the case, I thoroughly and utterly disagree with this nanny state approach. Completely, respectfully love you, Representative Pavone. I just don't agree with you on this one. I'm a no vote. Thank you.
Further discussion. Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I agree with my colleague from Thornton. Members, this bill is about open and public. And I'm confused about what we're doing here because we're talking about a place of worship and what people do in a church. Allow people to do what they want in a church. It's a bad amendment. It is the second house, and so it's within the rules to bring a substantive amendment. But this is, if we wanted to write a bill about churches and what they should be doing in churches, and the representative from Denver could have done that. That this is not the place to hijack this bill.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me just be clear. One, and I'm glad Representative Salazar brought up the use of particular substances as a place of and in a religious worship manner. Those laws have certainly been upheld, and this law would not impact any of those laws. If it did in any way find that it impinged upon religious worship and religious establishment, then this amendment would be found unconstitutional, and that is why Section 4 of the severability clause is there. But make no mistake, we've already made these decisions for liquor stores, for adult entertainment centers. We create a prohibition of space. We put in, you must not be within 1,000 feet of a child care center, must not be within 1,000 feet of a church, must not be within 1,000 feet of so many different prohibitions. But in this case, the idea here that you could take advantage of the law in such a way as to, I think, bring such monumental focus into the state of Colorado to say the state of Colorado now suddenly decides to allow churches to be set up to allow marijuana consumption is simply not the law, simply shouldn't be the law, and we just need to codify that in place. Because if that's the road on which we're going, it's shameful to me that that's what the people of Colorado, what the people around not just the country but the world right now think about what Colorado's laws allow. And that should not be the case, and that's why we bring this amendment.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Representative Pavon, but I am also opposed to this amendment. I think that with regard to churches, it's not up to us to determine if something is a church or not. IRS and the federal government is responsible for making those determinations. Some of you may know I used to work for IRS, and there were lots of different kinds of churches that were established, and that was one of their responsibilities to decide if they're a legitimate church or they were just trying to receive tax advantage or other advantages. I won't opine at all whether or not that's what this particular church is doing, but I think it's a real slippery slope for us to try to make that determination in our capacity. I think the representative from Thornton also made a very good point with respect to our history. In the U.S., not only did the federal government outlaw peyote use, but they outlawed certain ceremonial dances of Native Americans and ceremonies. The sun dance, the ghost dance, to name a few, where peyote was not used, were also outlawed at a time by our government because we felt they were uncivilized and decided this group should not do them. And I think this is the same slope we're following into now. If this is not a church, the federal government will have to make that determination, and if there was a complaint or a resolution that we wanted to ask the federal government to come in and look at this church to see if it's a legitimate church or not, I think that's a proper way to do this, but not through this amendment. So I would ask you to oppose this amendment. Thank you.
I mean, seriously.
Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this bill has made it out of committee in the Senate, out of the Senate itself, out of committee here in the House, through second reading on the House, which is where we got a chance to debate these issues, and now we're coming to a third reading amendment. Why now? Although this may be within the rules, I think this sets a dangerous precedent. This bill's already been vetted. We already had an up or down vote on it. I urge a no vote on allowing a third reading amendment.
Not use it anymore, hardly.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is passage of the motion to grant permission to run the third reading amendment to Senate Bill 184. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote.
It was nobody, it was a mistake.
Please close the machine.
Bye. Have a good day.
With 25 yes votes, 40 no votes, the request to grant permission to hearing a third reading amendment is lost. So the question before us is a passage of Senate Bill 184 on third reading and final passage. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Lew, okay. Please close the machine. With 35 yes votes, 30 no votes, Senate Bill 184 is passed. Co-sponsors.
Thanks, Mary. That's all right.
Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title. Oh, Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over House Bill 1237 one day till Friday, April 21st.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1237 will be laid over. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 12. Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over House Bill 1286 and House Bill 1318 one day till Friday, April 21st.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 1286 and House Bill 1318 will be laid over. Mr. Randall, that takes us to House Bill 1132. Would you read the title of it?
House Bill 1132 by Representative Lundin, Senator Gardner, concerning judicial disqualification and civil actions.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1132 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of House Bill 1132 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Please close the machine. With 64 yes votes, 1 no vote, House Bill 1132 is passed. Co-sponsors.
They PI'd it.
Please close the machine. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1316.
House Bill 1316 by Representative Lundin, Senator Marble, concerning delaying the implementation of House Bill 16-1309.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1316 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of House Bill 1316 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please vote. Representative Pabon and Representative Weissman.
Well, that's right. I mean, seriously.
Please close the machine. With 65 yes votes, 0 no votes, House Bill 1316 is passed. Co-sponsors.
Did you find it? Did you have trouble? No. Okay.
He was just coming out of there.
Was he? Oh, that makes it easier.
What is, you wouldn't expect there.
Please close the machine.
Oh, Robin.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 225.
Senate Bill 225 by Senator Cook, also Representative Willett, concerning the non-subsidy relocation of laws related to farm products from Title 12 of Colorado Revised Statutes as part of the organizational recodification of Title 12.
Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of Senate Bill 225 on third reading and final passage.
The question before us is a passage of Senate Bill 225 on third reading and final passage. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote.
Look at this. Oh.
Please close the machine. With 64 yes votes, 1 no vote, House Bill 225 is passed. Co-sponsors. Please close the machine.
Thanks, Alec.
Madam Majority Leader. Yeah, Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the following bills be made special orders at 9:37 a.m. House Bill 1289, Senate Bill 256, Senate Bill 262, House Bill 1301, House Bill 1328, Senate Bill 17.
Seeing no objection, those bills will be heard on special orders. Madam Speaker Pro Tem. All right, seeing no objection, the Speaker Pro Tem Danielson will take the chair.
They were just talking on the news, they might get the southern route going again. I know, but now if he does that, that's a shame. What a
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by the title unless there's a request for reading a bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested, as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon the motion of the majority leader, and the court roll is relaxed.
All right, there we go. My kids.
Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1289.
House Bill 1289 by Representatives Valdez and Hansen, House Senators Quorum and Carter, concerning a requirement that state engineer promulgate rules establish optional streamlined approach to calculate the historic consumptive use of a water right.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move House Bill 1289.
To the bill.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, great bipartisan support for this bill. I think this is one of the places where we can really help implement the state water plan, as well as making it much easier for water rights owners to do transactions, especially on a shorter term nature, making more flexible the mechanisms in our state to trade water. Right now, there are very high transaction costs for somebody that would like to do a short-term sale. They have to hire engineers and lawyers, go through water court. Can cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to calculate their historic consumptive use. Enter House Bill 1289, where we are using a solution that has worked very well in the Ark Valley and the Catlin project, where the state engineer will promulgate rules to allow for an approximation calculation of historic consumptive use at much lower cost, therefore enabling alternative transfer mechanism transactions. And so I would ask for your support of House Bill 1289.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I'd ask for a no vote on this bill. This mechanism may have worked in the Arkansas Valley, but it is not something that we're ready to release statewide, nor did they talk to any of the roundtables to discuss this as to whether this is the mechanism they want or not. There is a great mechanism that is developed by CSU that everybody is using on the South Platte. At this point, they would like to just get together and see which model may be used and how they can adapt models before we legislate that. This may be optional, but if this comes in, you still have to defend against it in court. So I would ask for a no vote.
Representative Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I just wanted to quickly respond to that because I think we have to keep in mind that this is an optional tool that either side of the transaction can use. If they'd like to continue to use a different tool, they can. This is not presumptive in court, and therefore they have flexibility if they need to go to water court. This is an optional tool that has worked very well in one part of the state. We want to make it available, again, available on an optional basis if someone wants to use it in a water transaction. And I think this will ultimately serve the state very well because it lowers transaction costs when you're trying to trade a water right. I ask for your support.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1289? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1289. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. House Bill 1289 is passed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 256.
Senate Bill 256 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning hospital reimbursement rates for the 2017-18 state fiscal year.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 256 and the report from the Appropriations Committee.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, the Appropriations Committee amended the bill with some technical amendments. I ask for a yes vote on the Appropriations Committee report.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Senate Bill 256 is a joint budget committee bill. It's a critical part of the budget balancing, and I ask for a yes vote. It does reduce the funding for our hospitals, unfortunately, quite significantly, but the alternative would have been to cut our general fund budget by $264 million. So I do ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 256.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 256. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 256 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 262.
Senate Bill 262 by Senator Lambert, also Representative Hamner, concerning the transfer of money from the general fund to cash funds that are used for the state's infrastructure.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 262.
Representative Lundin.
Could I speak to the bill?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could please continue, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Senate Bill 262 is also part of the budget balancing package. It adjusts the transfers to the HUTF, and I ask for a yes vote.
Now, Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for bringing this bill. Colleagues, let me take you back to that two-day debate on the long bill and the orbital bills. As part of that conversation, you'll recall I ran an amendment that would have normalized, in my mind, what we are keeping in reserve and transferred money in that normalization process, because it generates a significant amount of money, to roads and bridges in Colorado. I move Amendment L006 to Senate Bill 262.
Amendment L006 has been properly moved and displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you. So what this amendment to this bill would do is it re-engages that conversation. As you recall, the 33-year historical average of reserves for the state of Colorado that we have lived with successfully over those 33 years is 4%. Baked into this budget is a reserve of 6.5%, a significant increase over the historical average. Why do you reserve? We all reserve in our household budgets. Businesses reserve in the business budgets. You reserve against contingencies, and you reserve in proportion to the elements of your budget. Members, what is the largest element of the budget of the state of Colorado, and what, therefore, are we reserving for? It's HCPF, it's Medicaid, and this is an open question right now. Will the states receive block grants from the federal government, giving us the freedom to manage appropriately our budgets and achieve the priorities of the people of the state of Colorado? I certainly hope so. And I certainly think that we should have a vigorous and important debate around how we spend that money. In the meantime, it is a mistake. It is a political calculation, in my opinion, to expand massively the reserves of the state of Colorado in anticipation of backfilling against something that may not be the policy choice of the people of Colorado. This amendment would give us an opportunity to move, instead of $79 million, It would give us the ability to move $200 million to the roads and bridges, a priority and rightful responsibility of the people of Colorado, and it would move that money with this upcoming budget. This is an important discussion. It's hidden in this conversation of a second reading of an orbital bill. I would say this bill in this moment is central to the conversation of how the people of Colorado spend their money. I urge your support of this amendment to, instead of spending $79 million, spend $200 million for the roads and bridges of Colorado, and instead of reserving excessively, in my opinion, as a political calculation, in my opinion, money for Medicaid, bring those reserve requirements back down closer to, still not even as low. This would still be substantially more reserves than the historical average, but let's bring those reserves down and do the business of the people of Colorado today instead of anticipating possibly backfilling something else that may not even be the policy priority of the people of Colorado. I urge your support of Amendment L006.
Representative McKeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in violent support of this amendment and in violent agreement that what we have reserves for is exactly this type of situation. We have reserves to plan for an emergency. And we have all agreed in this House that our emergency is transportation, that we have a vital, immediate need to solve our transportation problems. And again, if we do not know what policy we're going to have ahead, we have a chance to look at that. We have a chance to make those decisions. We actually have a chance to make studied decisions based on the data of future policy we see from the federal government rather than an anticipation into an unknown future. This is an immediate need. It's a known need. We have been talking about this entire session. I urge a yes vote on this amendment.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, we've done this before. We have lowered reserve in order to get money to meet our needs. We have a severe need for transportation in the state of Colorado, and we're not meeting that need in any way, shape, or form. There's a bunch of maybes out there. This could do that. This could be the start of getting us money for transportation that we can use to repair our roads and bridges in the state of Colorado. Why not utilize those dollars that are sitting there in order to get this done? This is exactly what this amendment does. I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L006? Representative Rankin.
Well, thank you for this interesting amendment. As I understand it, Representative Lundeen, you're going back to historical reserve levels, saying that I think you said in your Long Bill amendments that 4%, but now you're saying 5% is adequate. That frees up money for transportation. So basically what we have in the summary for 262 says that we go to 79 back to 160. You're really just saying that we had forecasted 160 in 18-19. You're saying let's go ahead and put that amount of money in 17-18 so that we can start to fund transportation earlier than the 160 transfer that came along later. So you're really just moving up the 228 schedule, which we had recommended in here. Obviously, I need to ask for a no vote because this is what we used for balancing. But I think I understand your amendment. You're just accelerating the transfers by a year.
Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, Chair. I would strongly urge a no vote on this amendment for several reasons. First, we have reserves for the kinds of emergencies we are seeing more and more of. The recession, wildfire. Wildfire, for those of you not familiar with that, takes an enormous amount of money. Emergency money. Floods take an enormous amount of emergency money to deal with. Both of those we are seeing a greater incidence and greater severity, perhaps due to climate change, perhaps due to other things. But more importantly, from a transportation perspective, our need for transportation funding is not a one-time emergency. It is a long-term need. It is a need that we have not looked at. It is a need which there are now 2 bills circulating between the House and the Senate, trying to deal with it in a more fiscally responsible, long-term manner. If we take these monies now from reserves, we will have to pay them back. This does not solve the transportation problem, and it leaves us more vulnerable to emergencies. I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And to answer the question asked by the esteemed member of the Joint Budget Committee, yes, that's exactly what this amendment does. It just moves forward this impending commitment that we already have. To this question of reserves and the necessity of reserves, over the past 33 years, this is what our history has looked like. Keep in mind, with every tick of this litany that I'm about to read to you, the current request is 6.5%. Starting in 1985, 5%. 86, 5%. 6%, 4%, 4%, 3%, 3%, 3%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 3%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%, 2%, 2%, 2.3%. I sound like an auctioneer. 4%, 5%, 5%, 6.5%. We are turning this mathematical, financial requirement into a political calculus. There is a need today. There is historical record visible that this is unnecessary. Why are we reserving so much? I would argue we are reserving so much in anticipation of a political calculus to a policy initiative which this body has not debated and not agreed to. We have a need today for roads and bridges in the state of Colorado. This amendment helps get us there.
Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I rise in support of this amendment. I think we had a very, very robust debate on transportation funding and how important it was that we find money in the general fund. And to Representative Lundin's credit, he has gone back and researched the fact that our reserves have never been this high. We consistently change them, and they have consistently been much lower than what we are asking for today. And as we heard at the beginning of the session, everyone said transportation and infrastructure is a priority around the state. And we are still hearing our constituents clamoring to fix the roads in the state of Colorado. This is one step that would move us in that direction. And I think it's still fiscally responsible. Yeah, the JBC is going to have to work a little bit harder and a little bit longer to put the budget in balance, but this is certainly something that's doable and something that shows that we are listening to the constituents around the state, that we're paying attention to the needs, and the fact that this General Assembly has not made transportation and infrastructure a priority in the past. But we're going to change that now by making it a priority now and moving forward. And this is one simple step that moves us in the right direction. I would ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Representative Carver.
I rise in support of this amendment and commend Representative Lundin for bringing it. It is so important that we address priorities in the budget. Transportation is a priority. This is a sensible amendment that recognizes that fact, and I urge an aye vote.
Representative Lundin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So last comment on this. If you listen carefully, you can hear the echo from the opening days of this session. The echo of the voice of our governor. The echo of the voice of the President of the Senate. The echo of the voice of our own Speaker of the House, saying, this session, transportation will be a priority. Yet here we are, barely 20 days left in this session. A bill that was held out as the answer to this problem earlier in the session is on life support in the other body. You cannot predict these things, but if you bet, do not bet that that bill that is supposedly the answer to our transportation problem will survive this session. We have an imperative to do something about roads and bridges in Colorado, and this is the moment that we can turn this conversation, take action, step forward, and answer those echoing voices that linger in this chamber, calling on us to do something about the roads and bridges of Colorado. Please join me in support of this amendment.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, ask for a no vote on this amendment. As you remember, Senate Bill 262 is a joint budget committee bill. It's orbiting with the long bill, and it's intended to help us balance the budget. I'll also remind you that the Budget Committee is a bipartisan committee with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, so there's been a lot of compromise in bringing this bill forward to you today. Yes, we have at times spent our reserves, but that has been during the budget year when we're faced with an emergency. It's, I would believe, not the most fiscally responsible thing to go in before we develop a budget and spend the reserve. I understand the importance of finding funding for transportation and hopeful that during this legislative session we'll be able to find those compromises. But I do ask for a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this doesn't affect the balance of the budget. This takes money out of reserves for a priority that we've all in this chamber been speaking about. We have a history of dipping into these reserves for items that are necessary and immediate. That's exactly what transportation is. We have an immediate need for money for transportation. We've all said it. We've all been at the mic trying to get that money. This does not affect the balancing process of the budget. It does not affect anything sensitive inside of that budget process. It will not move other figures inside of the budget process. Why not show that we are trying to do something for transportation and pass this important amendment?
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The noes have it. Amendment L006 is lost. To the bill. Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move Amendment L004 and ask for an aye vote. I move L004.
Amendment L004 has been properly moved and displayed. Please proceed, Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been holding this amendment since the budget discussion. You know, we've all come to an agreement that transportation, funding our roads and transportation infrastructure is our highest priority.
Representative Beckman, give me 1 second, please. Thank you for your attention, members and guests in the gallery. Please proceed, Representative Beckman.
Over the session, we've all come to the agreement that funding our roads and transportation infrastructure is one of our highest priorities. And even though we may disagree somewhat on how we can fund those improvements, we all know that it is our highest priority. During the original budget, during the budget deliberations, we've seen money go to marijuana data collection, marijuana evidence-based policy, marijuana evaluations, research, the list goes on and on. What this amendment does, it takes marijuana money and moves it into the general fund, $14 million this year, and then in the future years, $25 million. This is non-designated marijuana money. It comes from the 2.9%, 22.6% sales tax that is not put aside for education or anything else. This is undesignated money. It would be very easy to move this money into transportation. It would be a good faith effort for this assembly to say, yes, transportation is a priority for us, and we probably don't need to be, we don't need any more studies or or research done on marijuana, and let's focus on our priorities. I ask for a yes vote for Amendment L004.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, ask for a no vote on this amendment. Again, this is a budget balancing bill. As you know, we have a lot of challenges right now with the marijuana tax cash fund and bringing that into balance. And I imagine that we will be doing that when we get into conference committee. So I do ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Rankin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll have to ask for a no vote. But thank you, Representative Beckman, for bringing a very clever idea. I think the whole idea of how we use marijuana money is very much on the table. And we need to have this discussion at every opportunity. So thank you for the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. No! The noes have it. Amendment L004 is lost. To the bill, Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I ask for a yes vote on Senate Bill 262.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 262. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Amendment 262 is passed. I'm sorry, Senate Bill 262 is passed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1301.
House Bill 1301 by Representative Michelson Janae, all Senators Holbert and Fields, concerning protecting a student's access to school records necessary for enrollment in another educational institution despite outstanding payments due to the school.
Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this is a bill that passed out of committee 11-3. And I see you, sir. And what this bill does is keeps us in compliance with our obligation to allow our students an opportunity to a free public education and have access to their grades if they need to change schools. It was a robust conversation, and I should have moved the committee report.
Thank you, Representative Michelson Janae. If you could please move the bill and the committee report.
I move the bill. I move House Bill 1301 and the committee report.
To the committee report.
In the committee report, we and on this bill, we talked about their access to their grades so that they can move freely through their education system. We added an amendment that would allow the free flow of these transcripts even within a school district.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the Education Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as I mentioned, this bill is about the students' access to their transcripts as they move through the education system, and I urge an aye vote.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Just so you'll all know why I voted no on this, I certainly don't disagree with the fact that we shouldn't keep kids from moving forward to their education. However, there is also a group of students that tend to hang on to school equipment like football jerseys, soccer jerseys, that cost quite a number of dollars. In fact, if you looked at the criminal statute, it could be petty theft, actually. But we're being asked by this bill to excuse those bills and allow the student to move on. And it's been my experience that I've seen students that have changed districts that still had their football jerseys and were wearing them on Saturday night. And that's an expense in today's world with schools. Again, I don't know of any administrator in my neighborhood, and myself included, that's ever used a transcript as a weapon, but I've certainly used it as a hammer to get those bills paid. Unpaid bills are a burden on taxpayers and a burden on school districts, and I would urge a no vote on this bill.
Representative Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Wilson. We did discuss this thoroughly in our committee, and we had members of schools and school districts come forward and testify in support of this bill.
Janae?
Also, yes.
Just give me a second. I can't hear you. Members, it is really loud. I can't hear the well. You need to take your side conversations off the floor. Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as in respect to Representative Wilson's concerns, which are real concerns, we do believe that students can be collected upon in any measure. What we are simply asking is that their transcripts follow them. Our obligation to the students is their ability to continue their education. Not having access to those transcripts can cause them to drop out of school. We had members from the street school and other community schools that help students who are finding themselves in a precarious situation, that they will drop out of school should they not have access to their grades. So we did have testimony on that. And again, you can collect in other fashions. We just want the students to still maintain access to their grades.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And Representative Michelson-Jeannet, I've got to ask, what other ways did I miss in this process of 40 years in education on other ways to collect? What did I miss other than referring to a collection agency?
Representative Michelson-Jeannet.
Collection agency.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1301. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1301 is passed. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Bill 1328.
House Bill 1328 by Representatives Hooten and Hanson, Officers Jones and Kerr, concerning a requirement of the candidates for certain federal executive offices file income tax returns with the Secretary of State.
Representative Hanson. Representative Hooten.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Very pleased to be here today. I'd like to move House Bill 1328.
To the bill.
Thank you. Colleagues, I would ask for your support of House Bill 1328. I think we stand at a very important moment in our history. We are standing on the shoulders of 40 years of bipartisan tradition when it comes to presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates releasing their tax returns. We're asking for your support today of a nonpartisan bill in favor of transparency. We believe that the voters of Colorado deserve the ability to evaluate their presidential candidates, their vice presidential candidates, based on their financial dealings. And the tax return is the most straightforward, easy way to make sure that that information is available for voters. For more than 4 decades, every major party candidate that has run for the highest office in the land has turned over their tax returns for voter scrutiny. That tradition has been broken, and the unwritten rules of American politics need to be written down. We believe this is very important for the voters of Colorado. We believe this is within our rights as a state to require this information. I'm also pleased to see bipartisan support for this across the country. Such leading lights as Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, Republican Congressman Garrett from Virginia. This is not a partisan issue. We believe that this is something for the voters of the entire country, and Colorado can take a lead on this front by passing House Bill 1328. And I ask for your support.
Representative Hooten.
Thank you, Madam
Speaker Pro Tem.
Speaker Pro Tem. Members, thank you for this. And just a little bit of civic lesson here. There are 3 current criteria for qualifying for the general election ballot in Colorado. One of them would be winning a major party's primary election. Another one would be submitting 5,000 valid signatures of registered voters. And the third would be paying a $1,000 fee as a write-in candidate. House Bill 1328 adds a 4th criteria, and that would be the release of the 5 previous years' federal income tax returns for any candidate for president or vice president 90 days before the general election. This is a very easy request of candidates to submit their tax returns to the Secretary of State to have them published on the website. This information, tax returns, allows the voting public to consider possible conflicts of interest when the President of the United States is making decisions of national security, is leading tax policy, federal tax policy. This is extremely important for the American public to know that our interests precede a candidate's financial interests. So I urge an aye vote on House Bill 1328. Thank you for your consideration.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us, Representative Van Winkle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And as I said in committee, this bill is highly unconstitutional. If we have a question about the constitutionality of it, we can only simply look to the Supreme Court, who has already determined this matter, where they said, in quoting Justice John Paul Stevens in 1995, "It is not competent for any state to add or in any manner change the qualifications for federal office as prescribed by the Constitution or laws of the United States. And the Constitution and laws of the United States determine what shall be the qualifications for federal office. And state constitutions and laws can neither add nor take away from them." Members, this is a separation of powers issue. The Federal Elections Commission determines what rules federal offices in these elections must follow. And that's why we have a federal government. That's why we have a Congress.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1328. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1238 is passed. House Bill 1328 is passed. Thank you, Marilyn and Mr. Randall. Mr. Randall, please read the title of Senate Bill 17.
Senate Bill 17 by Senator Aguilar, Representative Singer, concerning adding stress disorders to the list of debilitating medical conditions for the purpose of the use of medical marijuana.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 17 and the committee report from State, Military, and Veterans Affairs.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee report on State, Military, and Veterans Affairs did several things. In addition to some technical changes, we also ensured that we were not violating our Constitution and also upholding previous state Supreme Court arguments. The other thing that we added is we wanted to make sure that a licensed mental health professional was the one that was doing the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress and not just a physician without a background in mental health or without a background in mental health. And with that, and I ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The aye has it. The committee report is adopted. To the bill, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, on this auspicious day, we've got a serious bill. We know that there is no medical cure for post-traumatic stress disorder. Therapy, medication, exercise, diet, there's no silver bullet. We also know in the state of Colorado that we have one of the highest suicide rates in the nation. When we let things go untreated for too long, the worst can happen. We also know that we have legalized medical marijuana in the state of Colorado. But the problem with legalized marijuana in the state of Colorado, medical marijuana in the state of Colorado, is that there are only a few qualifying conditions and none of them are post-traumatic stress disorder. We have veterans that are coming home, 22 a day, complete suicide. They go to the VA and they ask for help and they are given literally laundry baskets filled with psychotropic medications that have side effects sometimes far worse than the illness itself. And those vets, when they ask for help, and they look to medical marijuana, in other states they're able to do this and actually not lose their VA benefits. And they're able to do this because we have guidance from the VA that says if you're operating and taking medicine in a legal fashion in a state where medical marijuana is legal, then you don't put your own benefits at risk. That's not the case in Colorado for post-traumatic stress because it is not legal to consume this on a medical basis in the state of Colorado. And so now, veterans and any other adult is left with a choice. You're left with a choice as a vet. You're left with a choice of whether or not you decide to take the psychotropic medications that have hard side effects that you probably shouldn't even look at those black label warnings for. They have the option of lying and saying they have chronic pain so they can qualify for medical marijuana, or they can continue to suffer in silence. This bill opens that door. It opens that door for our veterans to ensure that they are not sacrificing their future the way that they decided to sacrifice their own health and then sometimes their own mental health for our country. But this goes far beyond vets. PTSD is not unique to veterans. It actually is more prevalent among women in our civilian society than men. And so now we're left with another question. How can adults start to ask this question with their medical providers and receive this as an option and not be forced into something like addiction counseling? That's what this bill does. That's what this bill does, is it says to people, before you go to a dispensary, go to a doctor. Before you talk to a dispensary owner, talk to your physician and have that conversation. We've seen this argument come up time and time and time again in front of our medical board and other places, and we have gone nowhere. And when you talk about marijuana, something that could actually make the symptoms of post-traumatic stress worse, at least allow those doctors to have that conversation to be able to ensure that those patients are getting the best treatment possible. That might not include marijuana, it might not include psychotropic medications, it's probably going to include cognitive behavioral therapy. But if we don't crack that door open, we don't have that honest doctor-patient relationship that is sacrosanct. And so with that, I move Amendment L021 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L021 has been properly moved and displayed. Please proceed, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, even though this bill passed 34-1 in the Senate and passed with only one no vote in the State Affairs Committee, there were a lot of concerns from our medical community. And after weeks of conversations and negotiations and discussion, the pediatricians, Children's Hospital, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, along with the Psychiatric Association, said, okay, we get it. It's legal in Colorado. Adults can already access this. We're not big fans of this, to say the least. But why are you allowing this for kids? Well, here's the rule for kids. Actually, here's the law for kids. If you were a child and you need a recommendation from a physician for medical marijuana, you not only need one doctor's recommendation, you not only need two doctors' recommendations, you not only need a sign-off by the Department of Public Health, you need the permission, also need the permission of both of your parents. That's a lot, and it should be. But it wasn't enough. And so this is the way that we're splitting the difference. Instead of exempting kids from this completely, what this says is one of those two physicians must be a pediatrician, a board-certified family physician, or a board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrist, and attest that he or she is part of that patient's primary care. This is the highest bar that we've ever set for any condition in the state of Colorado. The highest bar. And why not? It's kids. It's important. And this is still experimental, to say the least. But rather than just exempting kids completely, I give pediatricians a lot of credit for coming to the table and being willing to split the difference with us. And I give the psychiatrists a lot of credit. And I give the medical marijuana community, who's been working on this pretty much since 2000, a lot of credit for coming to the table as well. This isn't perfect. There's still a lot of doctors out there that are afraid they're going to get fired just for recommending medical marijuana to a patient, even on their own free time. We've answered a lot of questions today, and we'll probably ask a lot more after this passes, but I ask for a yes vote on Amendment L021 to honor the compromise that we put together and to move forward in a way that ensures that doctors and parents and patients and kids all get an opportunity to have this very important medical and psychological conversation in a thorough manner.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. If we're going to have children inside this case of being able to add them to medical marijuana, then the right thing to do is to put guard rails on how they're able to receive this care so that their parents can be involved in it. There's a very long list. But then there also is a very pertinent issue that's addressed here in this amendment that says clearly that physicians that are qualified in the development of children, but maybe not so much in the use of medical marijuana for this mental condition, that they're able to corroborate and be attested that they are in fact qualified physicians for the best interest of the children. So I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So once again, I renew my motion, and Representative Leonard and I have been having a conversation, and while we disagree, I believe the debate should exist. And so I believe that Representative Leonard may have another amendment that he's bringing that, while I don't support, I support the conversation. And so unless he brings it up now, it becomes a settled question issue, and that's the end of my technical conversation here.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Singer. I appreciate the nuance of talking about children in this, and I would therefore offer a substitute amendment L013 and ask that it be displayed. L013 is
Excuse
an
me.
amendment as a substitute amendment.
This is not L013.
Oh, sorry. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Please move the amendment.
I move L013 and ask that it be displayed. Thank you.
L013 has been properly moved and displayed. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an amendment, although it looks short. What it does is it removes the part in the bill that addresses minor children. It starts on page 6, and it continues all the way through with all the language that involves children. This bill does two things. It does add PTSD on the list for adults, for veterans especially, and acute stress disorder as one of the criteria to be able to use medical marijuana for. And then on page 6, it begins to have a discussion about minor children and all the criteria, one of which we heard was having 2 physicians, one of which shall be board certified, et cetera. And then it has lots of criteria about parents' involvement, et cetera. But we heard a lot of testimony in our committee meeting on this, and we heard from 13 different physicians that stressed to us that children are not small adults. They have developing brains, and the brain actually keeps developing until 25 years old. But what this amendment does is exclude children. And it says that with the understanding that let's have adults make choices about how effective marijuana is in resolving or helping adults cope with PTSD and acute stress disorder. And let that experiment go on, because it really is one. Because in the list today, there for medical marijuana are seizures and epilepsy and HIV and cancer, acute pain. Those are issues that have been wrestled with and dealt with successfully with the use of marijuana. And let adults deal with more mental illness, not as much physical or what I call chemical illnesses like seizures. But if they don't want to do or would feel more relief rather than doing cognitive behavioral therapy, and they want to be able to help mostly sleep at night, which is the big issue, let adults do that. But let's pause for children. I'm a big parental rights person. I don't like the government telling parents what they can and can't do in the best care of their children. The parents know most about what's good for children and what they should be able to do. And at the same time, we know that we have guardrails around controlled substances. And so what we're saying here is let's pause on this bill. Let's let the bill do good things for adults. Let's give adults the freedom and liberty to make choices on their medical care with an unusual substance here in Colorado that's illegal federally, but legal here constitutionally. But let's not have that experiment on children that actually affects them. And we heard about when children use marijuana, and they can use non-hallucinogenic marijuana, but it actually physically affects the developing brain. It has IQ differences. It has physical changes in a child that never get repaired for the rest of their life. And that's what we're saying here is it may be efficacious for them on their specific mental illness and giving them relief. But for children under the age of 18 that need more parental approval, let's pause on that. And let's not jump into it. Let's come back next year, come back after we see its effect on adults, after we have more research on the use that children have with marijuana, and let's see what happens. Remember, children still have the ability to access marijuana, their parents do, for all the other issues that we still have. MS, epilepsy, seizures, nausea, acute pain. Remember, we passed last year the bill to allow the children to take marijuana inside a school so that they didn't have to disrupt their day with their parent or provider. I voted for that. I'm all for the use of medical marijuana. But for this issue right here that we're addressing, I would ask this body to pause, to take children out of this experiment and be able to have this move forward with adults, and then we can have a good conversation with it after. So I ask for your approval, your yes vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Lebsack.
Members, this is a very disappointing amendment. So disappointing, I'm going to call it the Please Don't Allow Children to Have Their Medication Amendment. Several years ago, the Medical Marijuana Patients Alliance came to the Capitol in 2013 and 2014, and literally children this big, and they call them refugee families. They're refugee families because they're citizens of the United States, these families, but they've come to Colorado because their doctors in other states have told them it's time to give up. It's time to give up on that child. And the parents refuse to give up. All of us here who are parents know that we are not going to take no for an answer. We'll do anything for our children, anything to keep them safe and anything to keep them healthy. And this amendment is adverse to that. We have literally hundreds of families, refugee families, citizens of the United States coming to this state because we allow our families to take medicine here in this state. We found that in some cases, other medications, other pharmaceuticals just don't work. And so we've decided to do the right thing, allow those refugee families to come here and allow those children to take their medication. Members, not only is this a bad amendment, this is a dangerous amendment. Please vote no.
Representative Humphrey.
Thank you, and good morning, members. I think I have some glasses on me here. That would help. So I rise in support of this amendment. We heard a lot of great testimony in committee on this, and there was a lot of support from the medical committee for exempting children under 18. And I think the science is just not there to go ahead and go forward with this bill in its current form. The Colorado Psychiatric Society, Children's Hospital of Colorado, Denver Health, American Academy of Pediatrics, Colorado Academy of Family Physicians, and others were all opposed to this, and they wanted to see the children exempted from the bill. And of course, the issues are, of course, that the child's brain is still developing, and that regular use of marijuana has been shown to diminish lifetime achievement, IQ, and life satisfaction. There's a risk of psychosis with use of marijuana, especially the more powerful forms. And many times, many circumstances, PTSD actually gets worse with marijuana use. So for all those reasons, I support this amendment and thank Representative Leonard for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to this amendment. You know, I rarely, in fact, I think this is the only time I have ever spoken in favor of a bill where the subject is the use of marijuana, medical or otherwise. And I'm a parent. I understand we want to protect our kids. I do. But I want to make a couple of things very clear. The first one that I want to make clear is that in the bill, it says physicians may prescribe the use of medical marijuana for PTSD. It does not require this be prescribed. It is under the discretion of a physician to decide whether or not a patient would be helped by using a medical marijuana product. And that's an important distinction that I think is being lost here. And I can tell you that the testimony we heard from the medical community was frankly bordering on, and I hate to use this phrase, but reefer madness. All we heard from ER docs was about all the youth that they saw in their ERs who had consumed a lot of marijuana recreationally. They were under no supervision of a physician when they came to their attention in the ER. And so I would say that those are kids that had been using inappropriately, and it may be harmful to them. I wouldn't disagree with that, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about giving a physician the opportunity to use medical marijuana to treat symptoms while they are also undergoing cognitive behavioral therapy. This would be something that could be used if they felt was needed. Currently, we have over 94,000 adult patients on the medical marijuana registry. We have 318 kids. And that tells me that this is not something that is done lightly, that when we are prescribing to children, it is done with care and thought. And when you are a parent of a child, at the end of your ropes, and this is a kid who may be suicidal because they are experiencing some pretty harmful effects from PTSD, and you've tried everything you can think of, you should be allowed to have the opportunity to use this to help your child. I recommend that we vote against this amendment. I do thank Representative Leonard for bringing this to our attention and for the conversation here, but this is a no vote, folks. Thank you.
Representative Humphrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just very briefly, we had doctors from Children's Hospital Colorado come up and testify, really in the strongest terms in favor of evidence-based treatment, which is, of course, cognitive behavioral therapy for PTSD, and making it very clear that marijuana use really interferes with that process. And again, I won't repeat the other reasons for their general arguments against it, but it wasn't just ER docs coming in and talking about reefer madness. We had really solid testimony from Children's Hospital Colorado against this, and I support the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to make sure we're clear about exactly what this amendment is and what it is not. It doesn't erase any of our current access to medical marijuana for children. So children today, through their parents and their physicians, are able to access marijuana as they always have. So if they're refugees, they're coming from other states here because they have epilepsy, and we heard this last year, or they have MS, or they're having seizures. This is why some of these families are coming to Colorado to say, finally, I can have medical marijuana accessible to my child legally. And that still exists with this. So cancer, severe pain, HIV, all those children, no one is deprived. This is adding a new category. This is adding acute stress disorder. So families would have to diagnose that this is what their child has, a PTSD-related stress issue. Talking with their physician, they think that this is the best issue and the best remedy here. And what we're saying in this amendment is to pause on that new category. That new category that's been solved or cured, or at least kids can deal with it through cognitive behavioral therapy. We heard testimony after testimony that this is the ideal way to cure it. Now, that's not to say that medical marijuana may not be a good cure or substance to be able to deal with, but we're not depriving any existing children of their access to marijuana. So that's important for us to keep in mind as we make sure that this new category isn't taken care of. It is a good point that says that physicians in this bill already may prescribe. And as was pointed out, it doesn't mean they're required to prescribe. Well, of course, no one is required to prescribe anything. And hopefully that stays true in America and in Colorado. And then, of course, no parent is ever required to give to their child anything that is prescribed by a physician, because they're the ultimate decider of what's in the best interest of the children. The physician is there to guide them in the health of their child. So whether the word may is in here, it's always going to be in any kind of a medical bill. We've heard a little bit that maybe the use of marijuana by children, minors, without supervision, used recreationally, is harmful to them. And I think many of us would know that it is harmful to children. It has them addicted to it. It does bring about suicidal thoughts and depression. There's a lot when a healthy child uses marijuana. It does have harmful effects, side effects and direct effects. That's not what a parent would ever choose for their child, to bring about any kind of harmful effects, mental, chemical, or physical in any way. But that's not the issue here. We're not talking about recreation. We're talking about medical. We're talking about parents that want to help their children. And what we're doing here is being able to say, let's have adults have access to it, but let's not open up a new category for children here. When we talk about, and we do this a lot in our body, we prescribe, we take care of our children, these are our children. Let's remember, these are not our children. We have our own children that we're absolutely morally responsible for. Yes, we live in a community and a state, but we're always speaking about what's best for someone else's children, citizens of our state. So we need to make sure we keep our focus that our own self-interest is on our families, but we care about the children of our state and how other families take care of their children. And what we're saying in this, just like we would say stop signs and cameras and other traffic violations, we're trying to take care of what's in the best interest of the general welfare of our state. And what this amendment says is what's in the general best interest of our state, our families, and especially the children of those families, is to be able to allow them the access to medical marijuana in all the categories that we already have. But when it comes to this mental issue, let's not tell our children that the solution is to run to a possibly addicting substance or a substance that has side effects that are more specific for children than they are for adults. Let's adults have that liberty to do so, but let's be more protective of our families. So I would urge an aye vote for being able to restrict this bill to adults and not for children. Thank you.
Seeing no further, Representative Singer. A division has been called. Representative Van Winkle. Come on, guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just urge a yes vote on this. There are studies being done right now for right here in Colorado. In fact, studies worldwide to determine the effects of marijuana on children, on kids 6, 7, and 8 years old in their development. Let's find out what these studies say before we start prescribing kids this drug. Vote yes.
Members, the division has been called. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to get a chance to speak on this amendment before a division is called, and I appreciate that.
Please proceed, Representative Singer.
Thank you. I apologize for the chaos on this one. So, members, here's why I'm asking for a no vote on this amendment. And I want to start with the process. The process here is that we have strong feelings one way or another about a bill, and we try to work those differences out.
Personal privilege, Lear.
When people came to the well and said the American Academy of Pediatrics and Children's Hospital and the Psychiatric Association were all concerned about these things, yes, they are and they were. At the same time, they sat down at the table with stakeholders and crafted a compromise. This amendment takes away that compromise. This amendment short circuits that conversation that is sacrosanct in this building. The conversation of being able to take two opposing sides and find a way to bridge the gap, to make both sides a little bit more uncomfortable, but maybe a little bit more satisfied with the outcome. And when people talk about this setting a precedent, I think it is really important to talk about the precedent that we're talking about. This amendment subverts the previous amendment. The previous amendment talks about doctors and patients working together and really crafting a narrow type of doctor that would be able to do this. It's actually probably a really good way to go forward if we're talking about adding new conditions for medical marijuana in the future. This subverts that. This subverts that and it limits the conversation for 18 and up. So in the spirit of honoring a compromise, in the spirit of moving together in a way that ensures that we actually ask for stakeholders to come together and craft an agreement, I'm going to ask for a no vote on this with all due respect to the representative. We all have our strongly personally held beliefs, and I believe we should have the right to express those here. But as important as that is recognizing that those same opponents support the previous amendment. A yes vote on this bill takes away that opportunity for compromise. A no vote on this bill allows that compromise to move forward, and I ask for a no vote on this amendment.
The question before us is the adoption of substitute amendment L013. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber entitled to vote, please be seated. I'm sorry, all those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of amendment L013, please stand and remain standing until a vote can be taken.
I have no idea what we're doing. I see a lot of people on my side. You guys got me?
Thank you. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place until the vote has been taken. Thank you. You can be seated. Amendment L013 is lost. To Amendment L021, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're back to the underlying amendment. As you heard, this is the crafted compromise amendment that allows kids access to this only with two doctors' recommendations, a sign-off by the Department of Public Health, both parents in agreement, and now we've limited it to 3 types of physicians. 3 types of physicians, including a pediatrician, family practitioner, or a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And an attestation that one of those recommending physicians is actually part of the primary care of that child. There are more guardrails on this than anything else. Representative Lontine said that there are only 300 children on the medical marijuana registry in the state of Colorado. You would think, by looking at the news, that this would be in the thousands or tens of thousands. The answer is no, because we are one of the most careful states, if not the most careful state, and we've put more restrictions on than anywhere else, and that's a good thing. Kids can already get access to medical marijuana. It's just not called medical marijuana. It's called what they get in their schoolyard. It's called what they get in the basement. It's called what they get from an older sibling. And they self-treat themselves. They self-medicate. This creates that honest conversation between a doctor and a patient. A kid who's going, you know what, doc, I think I have PTSD. Do you have some medicine, maybe some marijuana for that? Now that doctor can say, oh, you know what? Let's rewind a second. Why do you think you have PTSD? Why don't we talk about that first? Why do you think this is the first and best choice for you? Let's talk about that second. Thank you for your attention to this, and please, I encourage an aye vote on Amendment 21.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I want to commend Rep. Singer for doing the work to get this amendment to this point. I did vote the bill out of committee. It was one of the most difficult hearings that I think we've had in State Affairs, or at least that I've had in State Affairs all session. We saw a lot of people bringing stories of pain to that committee, including families with children. It's this aspect of the bill that I have always personally been most uncomfortable with. I think this amendment puts some guardrails on that part of the bill. I commend Rep. Singer for staying engaged and getting us to this point. I urge a yes on the amendment and on the bill as amended.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L021? Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this amendment. If we're going to have children have additional access, then at least this will help put some guidelines on that. Representative Singer did a fabulous job by bringing a lot of parties together, especially those who wanted children out of this bill, and lots of pediatricians did. But as long as they're in, this does help open it up to even family practitioners, which is great. This helps get the dialogue, as he described, between parents and their child, and also between parents and the physicians, so that this issue doesn't get out of hand. So as long as children are going to be a part of it, then this is a great compromise. So thank you.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. I rise in support of this amendment. Although I struggled at first with this amendment, I didn't feel like it was necessary. I felt like we've put enough guardrails, or Representative Singer, I should say, put enough guardrails in this bill to be able to have that conversation to make sure that this isn't getting in the hands of a kid who just wants to get marijuana, but that they can be evaluated and they can have a discussion about what's going on in their lives to really determine if this is the right treatment. But adding more guardrails, I guess, is not a bad thing when it comes to our kids and making sure that our kids are safe and that this is not going to get abused in any way. I don't think that it would, but having the additional protection is not a bad thing. So I commend Representative Singer on all of his work negotiating this. I appreciate that he's come up with a compromise that I think we all can move forward on. And with that, members, again, I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L021. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Amendment L021 is adopted. To the bill, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I ask for an aye vote on Amendment 17.
On Amendment 17?
I stand corrected. The hazy cloud from across the street must be moving its way over already.
Oh.
I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 17.
Much more clear. The question before us is the adoption. Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I rise in opposition of this bill. And just as a reminder, because I think as we deliberate on issues in this in the House, sometimes we forget about the practicalities. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled that employers can fire for off-duty pot use, and it doesn't matter if it's a prescription from a doctor, if they have a drug card. The Supreme Court case in 2015 was a 6-0 ruling. So employers with zero tolerance for drug policies trump Colorado medical marijuana law. And the reason I bring this up is because we're having a lot of discussion about how wonderful this would be for people who have PTSD, people coming home from the military, police, fire. But we have to remember, and it's a public service announcement, that the company that you work for, if they drug test and you have marijuana in your system, can fire you. And there's a lot of companies. Mountain States just reported that they're doing more drug testing, and they can set up their own policies. So I think it's just a cautionary tale that when you prescribe marijuana, you're most likely going to be having people not work in some of the really good jobs in Colorado, because Colorado Supreme Court is saying that federal law trumps our law, unemployment law. So just think about that when you vote. Thank you.
Representative Willett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I rise in opposition to this bill. I appreciate the amendment and the hard work. I sat in the helped organize and sat in the Marijuana Interim Committee, and I've given quite a bit of thought to this issue. Certainly, I am sensitive to primarily our veterans' interest in this topic. But let me bring home some facts that a lot of people don't like to deal with. There was just a poll of the CU Medical School students, and they asked about this issue of medical marijuana. And a very high proportion of the students, I think way over 75%, said they'd like to see more empirical study before going any further and are uncomfortable with medical marijuana. These are our young, new generation saying this. Second of all, we just had the Obama administration, after 8 years, decide not to declassify marijuana. Think of how important that is. They are saying by that decision there is insufficient scientific evidence that marijuana has provable medical benefits. Now, I don't know why, and maybe we do need more studies, and maybe they will be done ultimately. I am certainly persuaded by nausea and cancer and some other things. Some seizure disorder sure seems to be anecdotally valid, but that's not science. Furthermore, we don't know what the long-term benefits are. Turning to PTSD, over litigating cases for many years involving a lot of PTSD claims and diagnoses, the problem with this particular syndrome is it is very much in the eye of the beholder. Depending on who the psychiatrist, psychologist, medical doctor, therapist is, under any of the different versions, I think the current one is DS5 or DSM-5, it leaves a DSM-5, PTSD. It leaves a wide open door as to who gets prescribed or who gets diagnosed with this. So now that opens up the problem of easy diagnoses. Do you remember when we first started with medical marijuana? What was it? It was headaches, backaches. Every college kid seemed to have a doctor's prescription for a symptom that would be helped by marijuana. So that opens this door further. I was just walking home the other day and picked up one of these magazines on Colfax here, and it talked about how marijuana was God's gift, literally God's gift, and that it helped with PTSD. And it said, you know what else really helps is ecstasy. And there was actually an article in there, straight-faced article, saying ecstasy is what we really need to also include for PTSD. Well, you know what? Half a bottle of Cuervo Gold probably also helps with PTSD because it masks symptoms. So whether it's marijuana or ecstasy or tequila, is that really medicinal or is it a masking of symptoms? Numerous doctors have come out and said we need to get to the root, not masking, and a number of veterans advocates say we don't want our vets simply masking symptoms. We want them to get help of the real root problem. The only consensus, and I'm glad for the amendment once again, of all this discussion I've had, of all the vagaries, the only consensus is the Obama administration decided marijuana is not medicinal and does not have beneficent uses under science. And secondly, that there is brain damage caused in developing bodies by marijuana. Those are your two take-homes. With those two take-homes, how can you possibly vote yes on this bill or any other marijuana bill for that matter involving juveniles? Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clear the record on a few things. Post-traumatic stress isn't some fungible illness. And especially when we're talking about this here, I think it's really important, not just in the context of marijuana, but people with a legitimate diagnosis of post-traumatic stress have gone through iteration after iteration after iteration and conversation and diagnosis by a licensed professional who's got to use multiple criteria. Multiple criteria. You have to be exposed to death, directly exposed, witness someone else's serious bodily injury. You have to have at least one of these 5 things: intrusive thoughts, nightmares, flashbacks, emotional distress after exposure to traumatic reminders, or physical reactivity to exposure to traumatic reminders. And then you have to have either trauma-related thoughts or feelings or trauma-related reminders. And then after that, you have to have at least 2 of these things: an inability to recall key features of the trauma, overtly negative thoughts or assumptions about oneself or the world, exaggerated blame of self, negative affect, feeling isolated, difficulty experiencing positive affect. And then you need another 2 of these criteria: irritability or aggression, risky or destructive behavior, hypervigilance, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, and heightened startled reaction. This is the fight or flight response that we're talking about. Criteria F: symptoms have to last for more than one month. So you got to be working with someone for at least a month. And then you have to have symptoms that create distress or functional impairment. So you can't show up to work, you can't get out of bed. And then you've got to make sure those symptoms aren't due to medication, substance use, or other illness. So someone can't be self-treating with marijuana and then ask for a doctor's recommendation, because that doctor's got to parse out what is self-treatment and what is the real deal. Post-traumatic stress is real. You can't fake it. And why would you want to? I find that really disturbing, that we think that there are psychiatrists out there that are going to be fudging this for people. The second component of this is that while our federal government has lagged behind in this, we also have a VA directive that recognizes that states have the ability to make these decisions, and we should not be impinging on that. That's also from the Obama administration, and that still stands today. We're far from where we need to be with research, but that is because the federal government has gotten in the way and said that this is a Schedule I substance and you cannot do the research that is necessary. So we're left with this. We're left with what we've got here in Colorado. And when you have the option of saying, yep, maybe this is worth a shot, when this substance is already available on every street corner in every major city in the state of Colorado, or you can talk to a doctor and do it the right way, I say let's talk to a doctor first. Once again, I renew my motion and ask for a yes vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 17. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 17 is adopted. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we rise and report. Oh, actually.
Madam Majority Leader.
Great. So I move that we rise and report.
You have heard the motion to rise and report. Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Ms. Randall, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole Big Lead report has under consideration the following attached bills. Being the second reading thereof makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1289, House Bill 1301 is amended. House Bill 1328 passes second reading or goes placed on calendar for third reading final passage. Senate Bill 17 is amended. Senate Bill 256 is amended. Senate Bill 262 is amended. Senate Bill 262 passes on second reading or revised placed on calendar for third reading final passage.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem Danielson. All right, members, you have heard the motion. We do have amendments at the desk to the report of the Committee of the Whole. So with that, let's start with the Representative Hamner amendment. Mr. Randall, can you please read the amendment to the Committee of the Whole?
Representative Hamner moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting the Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 256, dated April 4th, 2017, to show that said report lost and that Senate Bill 256 passed.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And colleagues, I move the Representative Hamner amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Would you like to tell us why?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I will. And there was an amendment added in the Appropriations Committee. It was a technical amendment, and I realize, especially with Senator Moreno sitting over there, that this is a joint budget committee bill, and we forgot to confer with our senators around amending the bill. Shame on us. And since it is just a technical amendment, we really don't need it, and so I would like your support of the amendment to the committee.
Representative Rankin.
And I'll ask for a yes vote on the Cal. This is just a technical amendment helping us clean up our trail of communications in JBC.
All right, Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative McKean, please close the machine. With 56 yes votes and 9 no votes, the Hamner amendment to the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Next up, we have the Representative Leonard amendment. Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Leonard Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
And Mr. Randall, can you read the report?
Representative Leonard moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Leonard Amendment, L013 to Senate Bill 17-17. Shall the said amendment pass, then to the underlying Singer Amendment, L021 to Senate Bill 17-17 lost, and that Senate Bill 17-17 is amended passed.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to clarify, this amendment was on the substitute amendment. The underlying amendment had to do with putting some guardrails in our medical marijuana physicians for the children. And then if you remember, the substitute amendment was actually removing children altogether from this medical marijuana addition. I would like to remind everyone that to be very clear, children already have numerous categories in order to be able to use medical marijuana, all of which I approve of. I think parents and their children should be able to access marijuana for the symptoms and the cures and being able to handle some of the uses that they have. What I'm opposed to is adding this acute stress disorder, which is more of a mental issue than a physical and chemical issue, to this until it's more vetted with adults. In the underlying bill, it has to do with opening up for adults, and the majority of this group agreed with that. So I would urge a yes vote on this, which is obviously turning that other vote around and removing children from this expanded use until such time that it's more vetted in our adult community, because our children are not small adults. They do have developing issues both in their brains and in their minds of being able to be addicted or using a controlled substance to solve some of the stress disorders. And this is not a message that is appropriate for an authorizing body to be able to convey to our society or to families. So I would urge a yes vote on this. Thank you.
Representative Stain.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd urge a yes vote on this amendment as well. I've talked to some school counselors. We've had a recent spat of suicides in northern Colorado, 4 of them just in a high school in my area. And come to find out, all those students were using marijuana. I want to let that sink in for just a minute. That's not a correlation, that's a one-on-one. Members, we know that adolescent brains still develop until about the age of 25. They're still developing neurons. If we come to find out that marijuana use is actually interfering with that. So they can't make serotonin, they can't make the other chemicals that they need, and it's causing depression and suicide. We need to stop and put a brake on this. I mean, this amendment, we don't need to be experimenting with their children until we know the further effects of this. This is very frightening to me, just based on the things that have been happening just in the last several years alone. Urge a yes vote.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I encourage a no vote on this, and I appreciate the conversation, so let's keep talking. So there was a mention that, kids have THC in their system or marijuana in their system if they've committed suicide. Well, my question is, was it medical? Because it probably wasn't. Because they probably didn't talk to a doctor, and they probably needed to talk to someone. That's what this is about. It is about that conversation. It is about being able to talk to a professional about your darkest, toughest, I almost don't even have the words for it myself, the most unspeakable things occurring in your life. And being able to talk to that professional and say, you know what? I need help. And when kids and parents have come to doctors and had those conversations, guess how many kids have gotten medical marijuana treatment for all the other conditions that we have? 300 in the state of Colorado. We have 1 million children in the state of Colorado. 300 have medical marijuana recommendations. Why is that? Because parents talk to doctors, and doctors go, let's not go there right now. We've got medical science behind us proving other things. I could have played a lot of other games with the amendments that were happening today. I had an amendment out here to say that recommending physicians shall follow the exact same legal requirements when we prescribe psychotropic medications to kids off-label, including medications that include an incidence in suicide. I didn't run that amendment today because that wasn't the point. The point was to have an honest, fair conversation, because there is no legal requirements on those things. Doctors can prescribe and prescribe and prescribe, and they should be able to do what's within their scope of practice. But this has been the most restrictive thing that we've done, and then to close that door actually opens up risk. It opens up risk because kids can walk into kids can walk into many schoolyards, as has been brought up before. They can walk into a friend's parents' basement, and they can access this and think that they're taking care of something that needs a doctor's supervision. This doesn't open that door. This actually shuts that door. This bill creates that conversation. This amendment shuts that door. I have so much sympathy for anyone that has had to deal with a friend or a family member that has lost their life to suicide. And if I thought I was going to be increasing access to something that would actually do that, I'd be shutting that door with you. This is more important because we can finally have that conversation. And speaking of conversations, we all have the right to say what we believe here, but when both sides come together and say, you know what, we're going to put some guardrails on this and we're going to work hand in hand, and we see an amendment that says, you know what, we like how you're working together, but we think better. We know better. It's not how work gets done here, and it's not how we move forward. For the first time, in my knowledge, we've had medical marijuana physicians and non-medical marijuana physicians talking to each other because we didn't play the zero-sum game. This plays that zero-sum game again. Do you think those conversations are going to continue to happen after this? Marijuana isn't going to go away. Medical marijuana isn't going to go away. Kids using it the wrong way isn't going to go away. But it's time that we actually start having reasonable conversations that move beyond the zero-sum. And part of that conversation has got to be kids. And I ask for a no vote.
Representative Zane.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd just like to add that medical marijuana has been a miracle for a lot of children, especially with seizures, and I've seen it. However, there is a perception among parents that medical or any kind of marijuana, not even medical, marijuana is much safer for stress than cigarettes. They'll think it's a lot less dangerous, but marijuana has grown in potency since the 60s and 70s when maybe, the parents may have partaken of that at some other state, obviously not here. But I want to mention that, again, we're talking about stress disorders. There's other uses for medical marijuana that children are currently receiving. So what I'm asking on this particular amendment is let's just put the brakes on this. Let's just hold up. We are getting this information from these high schools right now. And honestly, I'm willing to shut the door for right now on this. I think that's a wise and prudent choice to do. So please vote yes.
Representative Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to make sure one thing is clear. There's no shutting doors on this amendment or this bill. This bill opens the door up. That's clearly what it's for. I voted for this out of committee because if adults that can already use medical, recreational marijuana want to be able to have this acute stress disorder and PTSD, to be able to be qualified as a medical use, save their 15% in excise tax, but be able to use it medically, they're welcome to do so. That's what this bill does. This bill opens the door for an incredible new use of medical marijuana, not just seizures, not those chemical uses, but now a mental stress that they can use it for. That's the bill. But what the bill then goes further to do is to say, let's use that same category, unexplored in children, and let's go put children in it. We'll put some guardrails around it, which we just did here, to have physicians come into it. But we're going to have its use be blessed by the state. Now, I do want to talk to you as a father. I do not want to see my children come home. It doesn't do families any good to have a child come home and say, hey, Dad, Johnny's parents let him he's got a medical marijuana card. He's using medical marijuana because he's got stress. Hey, Dad, I've got stress. You've got stress. We all have stress. Hey, Dad, we have a new element that comes into the household to talk about how we have stress. They're using it. It's legal. It must be good. It must be a solution. Therefore, I want it. I don't mind the conversation that takes place that says, my child has severe depression, has severe stress because of a very traumatic experience. And we do cognitive therapy, and we try everything we can, and now we're going to try this, and let's have a dialogue. That's wonderful. I don't mind that. But that's to be able to explore with adults. Let's let the adults do that with their therapists and their physicians, and let's see what the results are on there. But for us to say, this is what we, as the state, say is the solution to your problem. If you've got stress and you're a minor, here's our solution. And that is going to start a whole new dialogue with children, because they're still going to go down to the basement. They're still going to get marijuana on the playground. It doesn't matter. Whether this bill passes or not has absolutely nothing to do with kids using recreational marijuana, supervised or unsupervised. But what we all know is that use of marijuana is not good for their developing brains. We know that already. It's not good for their personalities. It's not good for their work ethic. It's not good for them to use it recreationally. But why do we say it's okay medically? Because we're letting the parents say, given this problem, I would rather have these problems than this problem. We do that in all our medical care, right? In taking our side effects that we have for any medication. We say the side effects are not as great as what the underlying problem is. That's why we want to use it. So we make that trade-off. But why are we saying that we're going to make that trade-off as a state rather than let the parents do it? We don't need to have that introduced into our children's lives We can work on getting the recreational out for our children anyway. We had a parent yesterday, the principal of Evergreen High School. You met the girls. He says, I deal with marijuana use by minors every single day. And we know inherently, we feel for them. That's too bad. We don't want that. That high use, we've got to figure out what to do with it. But suddenly we're going to say it's okay. The state says it's okay. If you've got stress disorder, it's okay to do that, and we're going to bring that new conversation in. And as parents, we're now going to have a new conversation about why it's okay for some but not for others, and why this is a solution that the state thinks. I say pause. Let the adults have that conversation. Let's let them deal. Just like we talk about 21-year-olds and drinking alcohol. Hey, Dad, how come my sister is 21.1 and she can drink, but I can't, and I'm 17 or 18 or 19? That's one conversation. But now we're going to introduce another one, and I say, as a body that needs to be careful with the movement of our society, our communities, and our families, let's open up the door like this bill does for adults. Let's not open up that door for children. Let's let families live through a little bit of this before we do it. Please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not going to rebut any points except just to clear the record here. This is not for stress. This is for post-traumatic stress disorder. The bill says stress disorders, and we narrowed it down to one out of the 7 or more disorders that are actually recognized by the DSM. We narrowed it down to one in a spirit of compromise and also in a recognition of the severity of the illness. Post-traumatic stress is not the same as stress. You're probably experiencing stress right now.
No, I'm not actually.
Okay, well, you're closer to Civic Center Park than I am, so some of you might be experiencing stress right now, and maybe a little release of dopamine there. This is about post-traumatic stress disorder. That is it. And I will not belabor any other point other than to say, if you know anyone that is saying that they're struggling with post-traumatic stress, right or wrong, whether they think they have it or whether they know they have it, that's when you need help. And I had conversations with kids because I used to work in a substance abuse counseling center on CSU's campus, and 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds would come and say, well, alcohol is legal. I can use it. Well, no. And by the way, whether it's legal doesn't make a difference because it's affecting your ability to be a student here. It's affecting your ability to learn. Whether it's legal or illegal is one thing. The other issue, when you talk about, oh, well, it must be healthy. Well, there's lots of things that are natural. Rhubarb is natural. We had a conversation about that. Parts of rhubarb will kill you. Just because something is natural doesn't make it good. But unless adults and experts have those conversations with kids, unless parents have those conversations with kids, it doesn't make a difference because our youth will jump to those conclusions whether it's a convenient excuse or whether it's a legitimate concern. And so I encourage a no vote on this. I renew my encouragement for a no vote on that, but I just wanted to clear those records on those two things. Our Healthy Kids survey has shown that teen use hasn't gone up, but that doesn't mean it's not a problem. We have one of the highest usage rates in the nation. That hasn't changed. So maybe if we foster more of those conversations, maybe we do a little bit better. And based on this conversation, I really look forward to next year coming back so we limit off-label prescription drugs for kids. Because that's what I'm hearing from this body right now, is that they'd like to have another conversation about that. That's not this bill, but I look forward to that bill next year.
Representative Carter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll keep my comments brief. I'm a little confused by the comment by Representative Singer because on page 2, lines 23 and 24, disabling medical condition is defined as means acute stress disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder. So respectfully, my understanding is that this bill would authorize marijuana use for acute stress disorder for minors. I rise in support of this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of the Representative Leonard amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Liston and Representative Michelson-Janae, please vote. That will be a $5 fine, Representative Liston. The machine is closed. With 32 yes votes, 33 no votes, the Representative Leonard amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole is lost. Okay, next up, Representative Lundeen. Thank you for patiently waiting. Mr. Randall, please read the Representative Lundeen amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Representative Lundeen moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Lundeen Amendment L006 to Senate Bill 262 to show that said amendment passed and Senate Bill 262 is amended passed.
Representative Lundeen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Lundeen Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Properly moved. Would you like to tell us why?
Yes, Madam Speaker. As we discussed at length, this amendment is about bringing back front and center, along with approximately $120 million additional dollars to the conversation, the effort to do something about the roads and bridges of Colorado. It does it simply by only fractionally normalizing how much we are holding in reserve. The historical average, 33-year moving average, is 4% reserves. We have a budget currently that allows for 6.5% reserves. That leaves hundreds of millions of dollars for something in the future that may be a crisis when we have a clear and present crisis on the highways and byways of Colorado today. This amendment gets at that in a partial but significant way. I urge your support of this amendment to bring additional money today to the crisis of roads and bridges in Colorado.
Representative Hamner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And colleagues, asked for a no vote on this amendment. And I don't know if everyone was listening when we were talking about this earlier. And while I share Representative Lundeen's interest in finding money for critical transportation projects and infrastructure, this Senate Bill 262 is a Budget Committee bill that is intended to balance the budget. And part of the budget balancing strategy is to make sure that we have a 6.5% reserve in the budget year that we're designing the budget for. And that's a fiscally responsible move to have that kind of reserve. in place. What this amendment would do is take money that we had planned to use for the reserve in case of emergency beginning July 1 and actually spend that money instead of setting it aside for the reserve. And as I said, this is a budget balancing bill 262, and I ask for a no vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the Representative Lundeen amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Exum, Representative McLaughlin, Representative Michelson-Janae, and Representative Winter. Ms. Winter. Please close the machine. With 30 yes votes, 35 no votes, the Representative Lundeen amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole is lost. All right, we are back to the approval of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Ms. Randall, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Willett. Please close the machine. With 47 yes votes, 18 no votes, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I lay over the balance of the... Oh, well, we can do announcements first. I can still, yeah. That's okay. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar till Friday, April 21st.
Seeing no objection, the balance of the calendar will be laid over. Announcements and introductions. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, pay attention. These are going to come fast and furious. First of all, the booming bass you hear over to the west is not part of the Sportsman's Caucus. If it was Merle Haggard and Okie from Muskogee, it would be. Room 109 at 1:30 will be the Sportsman's Caucus actual meeting. Don't forget your cards for the caps. If you want any of the boxes of hot dogs, I've got a list of those for any of you that want to order a box of those hot dogs. Also, we will be hearing the CPW fee bill 1321. The folks down in the first floor are the ones you want to talk to about why they support that. So be sure while you're taking your cards around, talk to the folks about that CPW bill. Thank you.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think members, you may have seen the calendar. For tomorrow morning, we have appropriations. We have several bills on the calendar. If you haven't looked at that, please do. If your bill is up, be sure you're there bright and early at 8:15 for appropriations. I am adding one additional bill to the calendar for tomorrow morning's Appropriations Committee, and that's House Bill 1340. Thank you.
I have one announcement as well. Representative Cole Wiss will be added as a co-prime sponsor to House Bill 1330. Representative Mitch Bush.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Transportation and Energy Committee members, we will be meeting in 10 minutes down in our room, hearing one bill, continuation of the motorcycle operator safety training program. See you in 10 minutes.
All right, one more announcement. On Senate Bill 132, we'll add Representative Melton as a co-prime sponsor with Representative West. Representative Janal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Health, Insurance, and Environment will meet today in room 107. We'll be hearing three bills: Senate Bill 121, Senate Bill 91, and Senate Bill 202. Thank you.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Good afternoon, Business Affairs and Labor Committee members. So we'll be hearing 5 bills today, Business Affairs and Committee members. So get ready, bring your lunch or a snack to keep your energy up. House Bill 1317 with Representative Escar and Hansen, Senate Bill 239 with Representative Singer and Thurlow. Representative Willett will be bringing us Senate Bill 222. We can hardly wait, Representative Willett. And Representative Melton has a busy day ahead of him. House Bill 1334 and House Bill 1335. See you there.
Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. State Affairs, we will meet at high noon in our normal spot LSBA to hear our it looks like 6 bills. Senate Bill 217, Senate Bill 219, HCR 1001, HR 1007, Senate Bill 156, HB 1259, high noon LSBA. See you there.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Judiciary Committee, we're going to relocate to room 271 for our afternoon session, and House Bill 1303, the Judicial Performance Bill, is going to go off the calendar and back on next Tuesday. Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Public Health and Human Services, you are all needed tomorrow for House Bill 1139 for action only. For action only, folks, we need to make sure we can clear our calendar of all House bills. So we will see you tomorrow for action only upon adjournment. Sorry about that, guys. Otherwise, we'll see you across the street.
Further announcements or introductions, Representative Everett and Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, we're doing something different because we want everybody's attention. Tomorrow is Bow Tie, Bolo, Baby, and Scarf Friday, and the Javon Melton Smoking Update.
Well, it's 420, so I'll just not give you an update today.
That's the wrong type of smoking, Representative Melton.
So,
Bow Tie Friday tomorrow.
Wait.
Representative Livestock.
Members, if you're hungry, the Claw Caucus is going to be immediately downstairs after we're done here at noon. And we've got a really good speaker, Nick Fisher from Department of Ag is going to be talking about the Pet Animal Care Facilities Act. And so if you want a free lunch and hear Nick speak on PACFA, come on down.
All right, further announcements or introductions? Seeing no further announcements or introductions, Madam Majority Leader or Assistant Majority Leader? Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess till 1:30 today.
All right, seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until 1:30 p.m. today.